It's a sobering statistic that over 80% of autistic adults are not in full-time employment. There are some in part-time jobs, some on gig economy contracts, a number doing voluntary work or self-employed. But according to published figures, the number of autistic adults in paid full-time jobs amounts to just 16%. Compare this to the general population, where the figure is 82%, or even to people with disabilities in general at 52%, and the scale of the problem facing people with autism becomes starkly apparent. Considering that the needs of a significant number of autistic people are relatively easy to accommodate for, the question that has to be asked is, why? In the UK, the Equalities Act of 2010 is in place to prevent discrimination in the workplace, including in the recruitment process. The Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 also provides similar protections in the US, and the 1992 Disability Discrimination Act is the Australian equivalent. Across the world, every United Nations country is signed up to the CRPD, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, as a starting point for member nations to build their local legislation. Despite these legal protections, almost every autistic person I've spoken to or read their experiences has been rejected for jobs because they were honest about being autistic on their applications. Even people with lofty qualifications and outstanding work records have found the offers have dried up once they put the word autistic on their applications following adult diagnosis. There appears to be such a fear of employing autistic people that many employers are willing to break the law rather than even interview us. It's important to bear in mind that the employment statistics for autistic people only cover those of us who are diagnosed. Estimates of the number of autistic people who are not yet diagnosed suggest there may be as many who don't yet know their differences and difficulties are due to autism as those who have already been identified. When we hear the backstories of people diagnosed in adulthood, a long record of unemployment or an erratic working history is extremely commonplace. Difficulties in getting or holding down a job and the mental health problems that has led to have been the deciding factor in leading many of us down the path of autism diagnosis. Most autistic people are aware that we differ from the crowd from a young age. Whilst no two autistic lives are the same, there are a number of common themes that crop up when we talk about our younger lives. The feeling of being an alien abroad permeates through autistic histories, along with intense, prolonged anxiety. We're commonly on the receiving end of countless accusations of bad behaviour from parents and educators alike. We're told we're lazy, antisocial and unfocused, or rude, uncommunicative and stubborn. These unkind descriptions only add to the feelings of being an outsider and make the task of being understood feel even more daunting. Diagnosis helps to put our differences in perspective, but it doesn't change us. We are still autistic people who see, interpret and interact with the world differently to the neurotypical majority. When we enter the working world, we can find it even more hostile than the schools we left behind. We are suddenly in competition with everyone around us for recognition, for promotion, and even just to stay in employment. You may say that's no different than anyone else, and you'd be right in part. The same pressures that make employment difficult for us are frustrations for everyone who works. It's no secret that mental health problems that can be directly traced to employment issues are at an all-time high, with prescriptions of antidepressants ever on the rise. The biggest problem facing autistic people both getting and staying in work is the increasing homogenisation of the workplace, the emphasis on standardisation and multi-skilling. One of the defining characteristics of autism is the spiky skills profile. If you plot someone's skills, practical, technical and personal, on a graph, the majority would show a relatively straight line, skills being more or less evenly distributed. Strengths and weaknesses are reflected in higher or lower positions on the chart. When we do the same exercise for an autistic person, we see a different shape emerge. There appear areas where we are particularly weak, and yet very strong in others. Rather than a comparatively even line, we have deep dips where we are weak, but high peaks where we are strong. These form sharp angles on the graph, hence the term spiky. It's not uncommon for people on the spectrum to find that many of our weaknesses appear in the social area of the graph. This is one of the biggest contributors to us failing at the first hurdle, the interview. It's often said that an interviewer's decisions are made within the first few seconds of meeting a candidate. The following conversation may have very little bearing on the final decision. Someone who lacks neurotypical social skills needed to engage with their interviewer is at a disadvantage before they've even sat down. No matter how skilled or experienced we are, whatever qualifications we have tucked under our belts, we stand little chance against an inexperienced, underqualified person with a dazzling smile and charming personality. Let's say we get past the interview and we're offered the job. On our first day, we're out of our comfort zone. Beyond the uncertainty that everyone feels starting a new job in an unfamiliar place, we often have to cope with an environment which is an assault on our hypersensitive senses on countless levels. Lights, noises, smells, chatter and more, and can be overwhelming on its own. But then we are introduced to someone chosen to show us the ropes, the buddy system as it's known. This will almost invariably be someone who is popular and well liked in the company. Again, we must grit our teeth and ignore the sensory assault, try and play along as if we care about all the workplace gossip we're told of. We try to concentrate on learning the job. It sounds like an autistic nightmare, but the trouble is only just beginning. The workplace is a dangerous place for autistic people. Whether we work in an office, a warehouse, retail or a skilled trade, many of the same expectations and pressures exist that we often find difficult or even impossible to meet. Gone are the days when it was sufficient to be just good at your job to ensure continued employment. We now exist in the age of the team. Increasingly, teams are encouraged to work to middle-of-the-road guidelines with scripts and clearly defined methods which must be adhered to. Even in jobs which don't involve contact with the public, a certain level of social skill is expected. Team-building events, corporate training, and social events intended to increase cohesion within teams are often seen as essential, and those who cannot enjoy or participate in them segregated as being problems. Autistics, with our spiky profiles, cannot thrive in these environments. When we don't want to participate in group activities, we're portrayed as antisocial or miserable. When we prefer to read the training notes or manual than gather in a room playing educational games, we're being stubborn or acting superior. When we become exceedingly competent at certain aspects of our jobs, but fall behind in others, we get told to stop showing off and admonished for our weaknesses. Try as we might, far too many of us fail to live up to these expectations. We communicate in a different way to the majority, so the tools designed to keep the workforce happy or in place don't work so well on us. We think independently of the crowd, and we can be punished for it. We're held in place by our inability to build social networks of useful contacts in an arena where who you know has as much or more power than what you know. We live in an age of standardisation and spin. Businesses suffer for it. Every company's mission statement is a carbon copy of their competitors. Customer service is an exercise in managing the expectations of the customer. Outsourcing has become the norm. Quality of work and product has become an expensive luxury. Environmental and welfare initiatives have to prove their worth in fiscal terms before they're adopted. Doing what is right just because it is right is no longer the norm. Every company now strives to dominate the market, and are judged not by their reputation, but by their market share. This affects everyone, not just autistic people. But the ability of autistic people to fit into such an environment is often way below that of our neurotypical colleagues. Autistic people are well known for our tendency to take things at face value. We often believe what we're told and extend that to being very honest ourselves. When we are told that our employers value innovation, we believe it, and yet we often find our ideas unwelcome. Companies publish statements championing honesty and dedication to getting things right, so we go the extra mile to take ownership of problems, only to be told that we've overstretched ourselves or trodden on someone else's toes. So many of the expectations of modern employment are tied up in unspoken rules and double standards we don't stand a chance of keeping up with. There is no manual telling us what is truth and what is corporate doublespeak. If we can't fit into working environments like this, it will inevitably lead to mental health problems. If we don't find ourselves fired for our misunderstandings, we end up sacked because of our sick leave due to stress-related illness caused by the very people terminating our employment. Then we're back to square one again, facing the prospect of another string of interviews until someone finally sees past our social awkwardness and gives us another chance. The primary reason for the chronic underemployment of autistic people is not because we're lazy or underqualified or have little to offer. It's because the same issues that frustrate everyone in the modern working world affect us more severely. It's because we cannot hide our true feelings as well as the rest. Because we're unable to see the true expectations hidden behind the company mission statements and customer service charters. We are built for a world that values honesty, inspiration and good quality hard work, not one which is built on assumption, unwritten rules and compliance. Now and again, an employer will pop up in autistic circles who sincerely wishes to open up opportunities to autistic and or other neurodivergent people. Inevitably, they ask the question, what kind of jobs are autistic people good at? What do they want to do? It's the wrong question to ask. Whilst it's well known that there's a higher prevalence of autistic people in the technology sector and in academia, there is no specific industry or type of work which is particularly suitable for autistic people. Among the autistic adults I know, there are great artists and crafters, managers and grafters. There are those who organise, those who manage, and those who work best on their own. Ideas people and developers, nurturers and carers. The range of skills and strengths is as wide as it is for any slice of society. If we are lucky enough to work in a field that matches the peaks of our spiky skills profile, we can excel. A better question might be, what can I do to make my workplace more accepting and more encouraging to the talents of autistic people? The answer? Be willing to hire talented specialists rather than acceptable generalists. Be aware of and ready to accommodate sensory needs. Understand that we can be loyal and dedicated individuals without needing team-building exercises or social obligations to reinforce it. Offer different ways of learning rather than shoehorning everybody into the same training sessions. Value people for what they do best rather than what they do the same as everyone else. Above all, when you speak, when you present, in your internal memos and your public statements, say what you mean and mean what you say. We'll talk more about some of the accommodations that can improve working life in later videos. But for now, thank you for watching.